She replaced her sister as a nanny for one day, unaware the single dad was a millionaire who'd been watching her all along. On a cold winter morning in the quiet suburbs of Seattle, Katie Lane stood at the front door of a stately estate, her heart pounding beneath her beige coat. Snow dusted the hedges along the walkway, and her breath curled in small clouds as she tucked a strand of golden hair behind her ear. She had never been to this neighborhood, much less a mansion like this. The place was far from her world of story times and finger painting, but her sister had called in a panic. High fever, no backup. Katie, still grieving her mother's recent death, said yes without a second thought. The door opened with a soft click. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark sweater over a crisp collared shirt. His face was sharp and unreadable, his cold gray eyes locked onto hers with unsettling intensity. Before Katie could speak, a little girl peeked out from behind his leg. Her wide hazel eyes lit up and she gasped, "You look like Miss Sunshine." Katie blinked, startled. I'm sorry." The man's brow furrowed, but the girl beamed up at her. "I remember you," the child continued, stepping forward, her small arms swinging excitedly. "You're Miss Sunshine. You sang the brave song." Katie smiled, still unsure, and crouched at the girl's level. "Hi there, sweetie. I'm Katie. I'm here just for today. Your usual nanny's a bit under the weather." The girl clapped her hands once. "But you came anyway. Daddy, can she stay?" Katie looked up just as the man finally spoke. "Ava, let's go inside," he said, his voice deep but measured. Katie rose, searching his expression for a hint of welcome. There was none. Only a brief nod as he stepped aside, holding the door open. "Thank you," Katie said softly, stepping in. The entryway was grand. Vaulted ceilings, polished hardwood floors, and an air that suggested silence with preferred over conversation. Ava skipped ahead, humming something under her breath. Katie turned slightly toward the man. "So, I suppose you're Mr. Carter?" He nodded again, slower this time. "Alex Carter." He didn't offer a handshake. Katie tried to smile anyway. "It's nice to meet you. I promise not to cause trouble. I'll just keep Ava company, make lunch, and be out of your hair before dinner." Alex's gaze hadn't left her face as she walked in, not in a predatory way, but as if he were trying to match her to a memory he couldn't quite place. His eyes flicked over her golden hair, her soft features, her slightly nervous stance. He had seen her before, not here, not like this, but in a different light, a different moment. "Miss Sunshine," Ava whispered again as she disappeared into the living room, her voice carrying like a ghost through the hall. Alex stayed silent, but inside his pulse quickened. It couldn't be. Not after all this time. Not her. Not the woman he'd seen in the old preschool video. The one who had sung to his daughter when she was lost in grief after her mother's passing. He remembered the way that woman's voice had filled the auditorium, soft and steady. How his daughter had stopped crying for the first time in weeks. How someone, some teacher or assistant, had crouched beside Ava and whispered something only she could hear. Later, in the parents' group chat, someone had posted a shaky video, just a snippet, a warm voice, a blonde woman singing and rocking Ava gently. No name, no way to know who she was. He had kept that video, played it when nights got too long. And now she was standing in his foyer, holding a bag of children's books and puzzles. Katie Lane. She had no idea, and he wasn't sure what to do with that. "I'll be in my office," Alex said, stepping past her. "Ava knows her routines." Katie nodded. "Of course. Thank you again." He paused at the stairs, glanced back once. She was taking off her coat, placing it neatly on the hook, humming something to herself. The same tune. The very same tune. His jaw tensed. Then he turned and walked away, the click of his shoes echoing down the hallway. Katie exhaled slowly. She was here for one day. Just one. But something already told her this wasn't going to be ordinary. Under the soft hum of his office lights, Alex Carter sat behind his mahogany desk. The walls around him were lined with books he rarely read anymore. His computer screen glowed with unread emails, but his eyes weren't on them. They were fixed on a small silver flash drive beside his keyboard. He reached for it slowly, almost reverently, and plugged it into the port with a click. A window opened. One video file labeled simply, "Be Brave Day." He clicked it. The screen flickered. And there it was. 2 years ago, a preschool auditorium filled with construction paper stars, hand-drawn posters, and the shy voices of children. The camera, held by an unsteady parent, scanned the room before focusing on a tiny girl sitting alone on a bench. Ava, just 4 years old then, her dark curls tucked behind her ears, her hands clenched in her lap. She looked lost. Then another figure entered the frame. Katie, her blonde hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, her posture gentle but confident. She knelt beside Ava and whispered something the camera couldn't catch. Ava looked up at her, and after a moment, she nodded. Katie turned to the room and, in a clear, soothing voice, began to sing. It wasn't a flashy performance. There was no background music, no applause, just a simple melody. Her voice soft and unwavering as she sang a lullaby about bravery, about remembering, about love that doesn't disappear. And then she said the words that echoed in Alex's mind ever since. Even when someone we love is gone, they live here, every time we smile. In the video, Ava leaned her head against Katie's shoulder, no longer crying. Alex paused the video. For months after Ava's mother had died, nothing reached her. No therapy, no new toys, no bedtime stories. But that day, something had changed. Ava had come home with a faint smile and a folded letter tucked into her backpack. A small note, written in child-friendly cursive on pink paper with a sun drawn in the corner. "Dear Ava, I see how strong your heart is, even when it feels like it's breaking. Your mommy loves you from the stars. Every time you are kind or brave, you shine like her. With hugs, Miss Sunshine." There had been no last name, no title, no explanation. Alex had asked the school. They told him she was a temporary teaching intern. Katie something. She had only been there for a few weeks. Part of a college support program. They didn't have her contact. She had moved on. That was all they could tell him. But the letter remained in a drawer by Ava's bed. The video stayed on his desk. And now, 2 years later, the woman who had helped his daughter feel again was in his living room, pouring juice and arranging puzzle pieces. He exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. He had recognized her immediately. The same hair, the same warmth in her eyes. Ava's words that morning hadn't been a coincidence. She had known. Children don't forget the ones who hold them when they are breaking. Alex replayed the video again, watched Katie smile, watched Ava lean into her. She had no idea who he was, no idea what she had done, and now fate had brought her back without any invitation. He thought of going to her, of saying, "You changed everything for my daughter." But something inside him hesitated. He wanted to know something first, something he wasn't sure how to ask. If she could reach his daughter in the dark, could she do the same for him? Not because of a memory, not because of a letter, but because of who she was now. He closed the video, and from the living room, the soft sound of Katie's laughter drifted through the halls, low, real, and healing. The morning sun had risen higher, casting golden light through the vast windows of the Carter estate. But inside, the atmosphere remained hushed, like the home had long forgotten how to echo with laughter. Katie moved gently through the grand space, taking in the details that seemed almost too perfect. The pristine white furniture, the framed modern art, the absence of clutter or warmth. It was a beautiful house, but not a home. Yet the moment she stepped into the playroom, everything changed. Ava was already there, sitting cross-legged on a rug soft as a cloud, a stuffed bunny tucked under one arm. She looked up, her big eyes curious but not afraid. Katie knelt slowly to the child's level. "Hi again," she said with a smile, her voice soft as snow. "Do you want to build something today? Or maybe we can make up a story?" Ava hesitated, then nodded shyly. Katie's heart lifted. She glanced around, saw a small basket of picture books, and an idea bloomed. She gathered a few, then sat down beside Ava. "What if we make a story that no one has ever heard before, one that belongs just to you and me?" Ava's eyes lit up. "Let's see," Katie mused, tapping her chin. "Once upon a time, in a kingdom hidden between the clouds and the stars, there lived a tiny, brave princess named Leia. Lila, Ava repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, and Princess Lila had the most beautiful mommy in the whole world. Her mommy's name was Claire, Ava said, her breath catching. That was her mother's name. Katie didn't know. She had no idea. But Ava nodded slowly at first, then faster. She had long hair like sunlight, Katie continued, and she used to sing to Princess Lila when the stars came out. One day, her mommy had to go on a long journey, but she left something behind. Want to guess what it was? Ava leaned closer. What? Her laugh? Katie whispered. She hid it in the wind. And every time the wind tickled the princess's cheeks, she knew her mommy was saying hello. For a beat, the room was silent. Then Ava giggled. A sound so full, so sudden, so innocent that it startled even Katie. Ava laughed again, clutching her bunny, her tiny shoulders shaking. Down the hall, Alex stood just out of view, watching. The sound hit him like a thunderclap. It had been so long, months, maybe longer, since he'd heard his daughter laugh like that. Not a polite chuckle, not a reaction, but a real laugh, one that bubbled up from her belly and lit up her entire face. He leaned against the wall, hand tightening over his chest. Who was this woman? Katie sat with Ava for hours. They built castles from pillows, created kingdoms with crayons, and danced to old music Katie found on the family's Bluetooth speaker. She gave Ava silly voices, braided her curls, and listened, really listened, when Ava spoke in half-thought sentences about the stars, about her bunny, about her mom. By late afternoon, the house felt different. It breathed again. Ava ran through the halls, her bunny flying through the air, her feet light on the hardwood floors. And Katie, despite being exhausted, felt fuller than she had in weeks. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky with orange streaks, Katie helped Ava into her pajamas and read one last story by her bedside. The little girl's eyes fluttered sleepily. Alex appeared at the door, quiet as ever. Katie stood, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Well, she said softly, I guess I'll be heading out. I hope she sleeps well. But before she could turn, Ava sat up and reached for her. Can you come again tomorrow? The little girl asked, wrapping her arms tightly around Katie's waist. Katie hesitated, surprised, her throat tightening. She started, then looked at Alex. He met her gaze, but it wasn't the cold, assessing look he had given her that morning. It was something else, something deeper. He nodded slowly, as if granting permission, or perhaps making a silent plea. And in that one moment, Katie felt it, the kind of silence that spoke louder than words. The unspoken realization that today, something had shifted, something important. And maybe, just maybe, it was only the beginning. Alex stood in the doorway, watching as Katie crouched beside Ava, helping the little girl press cookie cutters into rolled dough. Laughter drifted from the kitchen like sunlight through a half-open window. He had not heard that sound in his house in a long time, not since before. When Katie first arrived, it was only supposed to be one day. But when his assistant mentioned that Katie's sister was still sick, Alex had made a decision that night. After putting Ava to bed, he approached her. I'd like to hire you, he said simply. Katie blinked. Just until my sister recovers. Alex nodded. Temporary nanny just for a few days. Of course, we'll compensate you fairly. She hesitated. I'm not sure. I'm actually a kindergarten teacher. I'm just on leave right now because, well, my mother passed recently. His expression softened. I'm sorry for your loss. She gave a small smile. Thank you. There's no pressure, he added. But Ava, she really likes you. That was the truth. In just 24 hours, Ava had clung to Katie like a lifeline. Katie had read her stories in silly voices, helped her find consolations from the window at night, and even got her to laugh out loud, a sound Alex hadn't heard in months. So Katie stayed. What was originally one day became 3, then 5. Each morning, the house seemed a little warmer. Katie made pancakes in the shape of stars, taught Ava how to write thank you notes, and built paper boats for the bath. In the evenings, she'd hum while folding laundry or sit on the floor, drawing pictures with Ava. The house no longer felt like a monument to grief. It felt alive. Alex began looking forward to the mornings again, to the way Katie smiled when she handed him coffee, to how she gently corrected Ava's spelling without making her feel small. She wasn't just filling a gap. She was changing something. One night, after Ava had fallen asleep, Katie stayed behind in the little reading nook off the hall, watching the child breathe slowly, a storybook still in her lap. Alex approached quietly, holding a folded piece of paper in his hand. "Katie," she turned, whispering, "she's finally asleep." He nodded, then held out the paper. "I wanted to ask you something." She took the letter. It was worn, folded 100 times over. Her eyes scanned familiar handwriting, and her breath caught. "This," she began softly. Was this yours?" He asked. Katie nodded slowly. 2 years ago, I was just a teaching intern then. Ava was sitting alone during nap time, crying. I didn't know her name. No one told me. But I couldn't leave her like that. I wrote this and slipped it into her backpack. She traced the word with her fingers. "You're brave." And even when someone we love is gone, they stay in our hearts forever. Every time we smile, every time we remember, love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. Katie looked up. "I never thought anyone would keep it." Alex's voice was quiet. "It kept us." There was a long silence. "I didn't even sign my real name," she said. "I just wrote Miss Sunshine. That's what the kids used to call me." "I know," he replied. "I watched a video another parent posted from that day. You were helping Ava talk about her mom. I've watched that clip more times than I can count." Katie's eyes filled. "I never knew." "You changed her," Alex said, his voice thick. "You changed me." Katie folded the letter and held it close to her chest. It was just a letter. Alex shook his head. "No, it was the beginning of everything." She smiled through her tears, the kind that come from being seen. Truly seen, for something you never expected to matter. That night, as Katie stood under the soft hallway light, holding the letter she once wrote to a grieving child, Alex looked at her not as a guest or a nanny, but as the woman who had unknowingly walked into his life years ago and was now standing in his home, changing it all over again. The days began to blend into each other in the most comforting way. Morning started with the soft sound of Ava's feet padding into the kitchen and Katie humming as she flipped pancakes. Afternoons were filled with books, laughter, and quiet learning moments on the sun-drenched porch. Evenings were slower, gentler. As the sky turned indigo and Katie read to Ava, both of them nestled into the corner couch. Alex watched it all from the edges, quietly taking it in. Katie had a way of folding herself into their lives without demanding space. She belonged without even trying. The way she looked at Ava when she laughed, the way she instinctively set a second cup of coffee beside him, just how he liked it. No cream, 2 sugars. The way she filled silence with peace, not noise. There were moments, brief but undeniable, when their eyes would meet across the room, and something unspoken would hang in the air. Not quite love, not yet, but something tender, something real. One Thursday evening, winter wind tapping against the windows, Ava developed a fever. It started with flushed cheeks and quiet whimpers, then chills and a glassy-eyed stare. Katie noticed it first. She pressed her palm gently to the child's forehead, concern clouding her face. "I think she's burning up," Katie whispered, scooping Ava into her arms without hesitation. "I'll stay with her tonight." Alex stood at the door, unsure, worried. "Are you sure? You don't have to." "I want to," Katie interrupted softly. "She needs someone close." For the next 8 hours, Katie never left Ava's side. She kept a damp cloth on her forehead, read softly between naps, and sat awake through the stillness of the night, listening to the slow rhythm of Ava's breathing. She didn't sleep. She didn't complain. She simply stayed. At 3:15 a.m., as Katie leaned against the headboard with Ava's head on her lap, she noticed a small tray by the door. A mug of warm ginger tea sat there next to a folded note. She picked it up, her eyes already wet before she unfolded the paper. "You stayed for her." "Thank you." No signature, none needed. She held the note to her chest and closed her eyes, 1,000 emotions flooding through her. The next morning, Ava's fever broke. Her little voice returned, hoarse but cheerful. Katie helped her brush her hair, tied it back with a blue ribbon, and made her a soft breakfast. Alex joined them at the table, quiet and thoughtful. That afternoon, Katie sat in the backyard alone, watching the trees sway and feeling the strange, unfamiliar ache of something beautiful beginning. Her phone buzzed, a message. Mississippi Lane, we'd love to have you back. A full-time kindergarten teaching position has opened at Lakeside Elementary. Let us know by Monday. She stared at the screen. A job offer, a chance to return to the things she loved, a stable career, a new beginning. So why did her stomach twist? Why did the image of Ava's sleepy eyes, Alex's quiet presence, and the laughter in the kitchen make her hesitate? This house had become something more than shelter. It felt like a family, like a home she hadn't known she was missing. But was it real? Or was she just filling in a space someone else left behind? Katie walked inside slowly, the decision gnawing at her. She passed a framed letter Alex had hung near the front hallway, the very note she had once written for a girl whose name she had not known. Now she could not imagine her days without that girl's smile. The weight of choice pressed on her. Stay and risk wanted more than she was allowed to hope for, or leave before it hurt too much. She stood there, suspended between everything she had ever known and everything she had never expected to find. And in the quiet of that late afternoon, one truth rang clear. This was no longer just a job, and Katie's heart was no longer her own. Katie stood by the window, her fingers tracing the rim of her lukewarm tea. Outside, the snow had begun to fall again, soft and silent, blanketing the world in white. The house behind her was quiet, too quiet. She had made her decision. That morning, she sat down with Alex at the long kitchen table. Ava was still sleeping upstairs, her fever completely gone, her dreams peaceful. Katie folded her hands in her lap, eyes on the floor. I got the offer, she said gently. The teaching job. Alex looked at her, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. And I'm going to take it. There was a long pause. Alex exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. Is it what you want? He asked, his voice calm, too calm. Katie nodded, though her heart thudded painfully in her chest. It's what I was meant to do. Teaching it's where I belong. She couldn't look at him. I see, he said, still calm, still quiet. But the hurt sat beneath his words like a shadow. She finally raised her eyes to meet his. This was never supposed to be permanent. I was only filling in for my sister. I was never meant to stay. Alex leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tightly over his chest. You were never temporary, Katie. Her breath caught. But I know I don't get to decide that, he added, softer now. Katie stood, trying to speak to the lump rising in her throat. You and Ava, you've been incredible. This house these days, they've meant more to me than I can ever say. He rose too, looking at her for a long moment, like trying to memorize her face. Then why leave? She blinked, eyes brimming. Because I'm not her. I'm not Ava's mother. I'm not your wife. I was just someone passing through. You were never just anything, he said. But the words came too late. Katie stepped back, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the kitchen before her resolve could crack. That evening, she packed in silence. Her sister arrived to take over, and they exchanged quiet hugs. Katie smiled through goodbyes, kissed Ava's forehead one last time, and whispered promises to write. Then she left. The snow fell heavier now, muffling her footsteps as she walked to the gate. Her cab waited at the curb. She climbed inside, refusing to look back at the house that no longer felt like just someone else's home. Just as the driver reached for the ignition, a voice called out, "Wait!" Ava's nanny, now back and recovered, ran to the cab, holding out a small brown box. "Mr. Carter wanted you to have this," she said, pressing it into Katie's hands. Katie opened in the back seat as the cab pulled away. Inside was a single item, a delicate wooden frame. Behind the glass was the letter, the very one she had written years ago on that long-forgotten day. Her words, still simple, still childlike in their warmth, stared back at her in her own handwriting. Even when someone we love is gone, they live here, every time we smile. And beneath it, a new line inked in Alex's elegant script. to the woman who changed two lives with a few kind words. Katie clutched the frame to her chest, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The snow continued to fall, the world blurring outside the window. She stared down at her own handwriting, her heart aching in places she had not known existed. She had left to protect herself. But what if leaving was the very thing that would break her? Katie walked the familiar hallway of her new classroom, her heels tapping softly against the linoleum. The children laughed, crayons scattered across tables, tiny voices buzzing with stories and secrets. She smiled the way she always did, but it never quite reached her eyes. Each day, she poured herself into the work. She led story time with grace, gently wiped away tears, encouraged little hands to be brave and curious. But in the quiet moments, during lunch breaks or when the bell rang and the room emptied, she felt the ache, the absence. It was not the job. She loved teaching. It was the silence where Ava's laugh should have been. It was the coffee she poured in the morning without seeing Alex's tired smile across the kitchen. It was the cold edge of a pillow that had once been warmed by belonging, not loneliness. She missed them. She missed him. Then one Thursday afternoon, as the sun filtered through the tall windows, her school secretary appeared in the doorway with a small package in hand. "This came for you," she said. Katie's name was written in uneven crayon on the front. She sat at her desk, heart pounding, as she tore the brown paper carefully. Inside was a handmade book, thick construction paper bound with ribbon, glitter on the corners, and stickers of stars, bears, and rainbows scattered throughout. On the first page was a drawing, Ava holding Katie's hand. Above them, the words, "Me and Miss Sunshine." Katie gasped softly. Each page was a memory. Ava brushing cookie flour from Katie's nose, Ava asleep in Katie's lap, a book open between them, Ava laughing in the snow while Alex stood watching, smiling, his eyes always on Katie. The final page was simple, a heart drawn with red crayon and a message written in Ava's messy, unmistakable handwriting. "Come home, Miss Sunshine." Katie pressed her hand to her chest, her throat tightening. She reached for her phone and dialed. One ring, two, no answer. Her hand trembled as she tried again. Nothing. She stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. "I have to go," she told the secretary, grabbing her coat. "Family thing." "Everything okay?" the woman called after her. Katie didn't answer. Outside, the wind had picked up. The air smelled like snow. She flagged down a taxi, climbed in, and gave the address she had once typed into a ride-share app without knowing it would change her life. The ride was long. Her fingers clutched the book in her lap like it might disappear. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, hope that refused to be extinguished. When the cab finally pulled up to the iron gates, the sky was turning lavender. Lights glowed in the windows. Her breath caught. She paid the driver, stepped onto the path, and walked to the front door. She hesitated, then knocked. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the door opened. Warm light spilled onto the porch, and there he was. Alex stood framed by the doorway, his sweater sleeves rolled to his elbows, his expression unreadable. But his eyes, those gray, solemn eyes, softened the instant they saw her. "Katie," he breathed like a prayer. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Then a small voice behind him rang out, "Miss Sunshine." Ava darted forward, flinging herself into Katie's arms before anyone could stop her. Katie knelt, wrapping her arms around the child, her tears soaking into the little girl's coat. Katie looked up, her voice trembling. "I got your book." He nodded. "We made it together. Every night before bed, she'd ask if you were coming back." She blinked, trying to steady her heart. "And you? Did you wonder?" Alex exhaled slowly. "Every day." She stood, Ava still holding her hand. Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a letter. Not a ring, not a grand gesture, just a piece of paper folded carefully. He handed it to her. "This time it's for me." Katie opened it, her hand shaking. "Would you stay?" "Not just for her, but for me, too." She looked up, eyes brimming, and nodded. The sky had already surrendered to nightfall when Katie stepped out of the cab. The familiar iron gates loomed before her, softened now by the amber glow from the windows beyond. The mansion stood bathed in golden light, wrapped in winter's hush, like a dream suspended in time. She walked slowly up the pathway, her breath curling in the cold air. Her fingers clutched the photo book tighter. With every step, the silence of the neighborhood wrapped around her shoulders like a question. Would he still want her here? She reached the door. Before she could raise her hand and knock, it opened. A soft warmth poured from the entryway. The scent of cinnamon and old wood floated through. Katie blinked, startled. Inside, Alex sat on the living room floor, a book in hand. Ava curled against his side, her head nestled into his chest. He had been reading, his voice low, steady, comforting. When his eyes met Katie's, the words on the page died mid-sentence. He stood. "Katie," he said, breath catching like a thread snagged on something fragile. She stepped inside, hesitating in the threshold. Ava looked up, her small face breaking into joy. "Miss Sunshine," she squealed, scrambling to her feet. Katie barely had time to kneel before Ava launched into her arms, hugging her tightly. "I knew you'd come back." Katie kissed the top of her head. "I missed you, sweetheart. So much." When she looked up again, Alex was still watching her, still stunned, still waiting. He walked slowly to them, something unreadable flickering across his face. Relief, hesitation, fear, hope. "I thought maybe the letter was too much," he murmured. "Or not enough." Katie shook her head. It was everything. He reached into his sweater pocket and pulled out another folded paper. This one wasn't from Ava. It was mine. "I was going to give this to you if you ever came back," he said. "But I wrote it whether you did or not." He handed it to her. Katie opened it slowly. "Dear Miss Sunshine, you were never just a nanny or a guest or a temporary answer. From the moment I saw how you looked at Ava like she was the most important story you'd ever read, I knew. You gave my daughter her smile back. You gave me something I thought I'd lost long ago, a reason to believe in beginnings. So now I'm writing my own. This is not a proposal. There is no ring. Not yet. Just a question. Would you stay? Not just for her, but for me too. Yours, if you'll have us, Alex." Katie's hands trembled as she held the letter to her chest. She looked up through tears, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes." Alex stepped forward, his eyes full of something fierce and tender. "Are you sure?" She nodded, smiling through the tears. "I was never more sure of anything." He dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but with both hands open, holding nothing but hope. And Ava, still clinging to Katie's arm, looked between them and giggled. "Does this mean you're staying forever?" Katie wrapped one arm around her and the other around Alex, pulling both close. "If you'll have me." The three of them stood in the golden quiet, the warmth of the home wrapping around them. No longer strangers, no longer broken pieces searching for a place, but family, born not of blood, but of kindness, of letters, of love in its simplest form. The letter that had never been signed had led to the only signature that mattered now, the unspoken promise between them, forever. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, handwritten letters, and the quiet power of kindness. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a note tucked into a backpack, a bedtime story, a door left slightly open, can change the course of a life. If you want more stories like this, tales that stir the soul, celebrate unexpected love, and remind us that family can be found in the most unlikely ways, subscribe to soul-stirring stories. New heartwarming videos are waiting for you, and maybe the next one will change your day, too. Subscribe now to Heartfelt Millions, and let your heart be reminded, love always finds a way.